welcome everybody to our first remote meeting, and can I ask that we all bear with each other because of this, as there sometimes, and I think you can already see sometimes with the mic, there can be technical issues, so please let's all bear in mind that. Our meeting held remotely is an important step, as we're unable to hold meetings in the chamber because of COVID-19. But what we also need to understand that the proceedings of our board meeting has to be open to scrutiny by the public and elected members. So a copy of this recording will be available on our council website after the meeting is over. I'm sure that some of the members will know by now the basic rules of remotely held meetings. But can I just add a couple of basic points again, which are, and we'll know this, it's very important that when meetings are being recorded, that only the person who's speaking has their microphone on. Everybody else put their microphone off, please. And this is because only the person who's speaking will be shown on the screen. And if noise is picked up from the background, then that can cause a lot of problems with difficulty hearing and seeing the speaker. We want to be able to hear and see what's being said. And for that same reason, it's also important that there is a short pause, and we already said that, between speakers to enable the camera to adjust to the new speaker. So short pause between that. Also, remember the content of any show conversation, instant message sent on the Teams system will be shown on the recording. Please bear that in mind. Also, members who are assessing by phone should put their phones on mute when not addressing the meeting. Now, can I also ask, please, that questions be put through the show conversation box? Can I ask you to do that, please? That would be really, really helpful. Thank you. Now, before we do go on to the agenda, can I ask the clerk, Robert, to do a roll call of any members so that it's very clear who is present at the recording? Do that, Robert. Robert, you're mute. You're on mute.
According to my records, convener, I have Councillor Adam McGregor, Councillor Burns, Councillor Cameron, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Devine, Councillor Audrey Doig, Councillor Dawn, Councillor Graham, Councillor Hood, Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Kerr, Councillor James Mclaren, Councillor McEwen, and Councillor Milet present. At the moment, the only absentee is Councillor Davidson. Thank you.
So has there been any apologies in that direction as far as Councillor Davidson? No?
No apologies have been submitted.
Okay. Any declarations of interest? None?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Audrey Doig?
I've got to declare I'm the convener of the Clyde Muir Shield Board, which comes up in item 8. It is a declaration of interest, but as it's a councillor led convenership, I will still be taking part in the item.
Okay, thank you, Audrey. All right, let's go on then now to item 1, which is the review and capital budget monitoring report. Can we agree the report?
Could I ask a question, Chair?
Yes.
First of all, I can't find my wee box to ask a question, but I'll ask it anyway, seeing you've heard me. Could Gordon take us through some of the how he intends to recover the £3.5 million overspend?
Gordon, do you want to come in with that and answer that question?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, convener. Councillor Devine, obviously the report sets out a slightly different format than they were used to presenting at policy boards, where it's a combined revenue and capital report. Within the revenue, we're setting out the Service Board's position in relation to kind of normal budget, and obviously we then set out COVID-related costs. So the overspend position that's set out in the paper is due to COVID-related costs and loss of income. So as an organisation, as you're aware, we are working through that. We're still obviously working through and the pandemic just now in terms of our responses. And obviously in terms of the income streams, some of those have started to come back on board, but it's too early to see what impact that will have in supporting improvement in those particular streams where it's showing a lot of income loss at the moment. So we'll continue to monitor it as the periods go on. Councillor Devine, obviously, as you know, corporately, it's something that we're all looking at, and very much it's not just a Renfrewshire matter, it's a matter for all Scottish local authorities, which you're aware is being discussed at a national level. So the services within the Service Board will do what it can to support the corporate and tie in with the national pieces of work that are ongoing.
Convener, can I ask Gordon, if, or maybe yourself, whatever, if any of the two governments have given any indication of money that they're going to recompense, in this case, Renfrewshire Council, and I don't mean them saying they'll look at it. Is there any firm guarantees that we'll get our money back?
Gordon, you answer that question, please, if there's any firm guarantees that we will get any money back?
From the two governments, I should say, not just the...
No, you did say that, two governments, Eddie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Devine. To the best of my understanding, there's been nothing formal around discussions ongoing around the various funding streams in terms of what's been passed through from both the UK and the Scottish Government. I think it's been previously set out that an income loss scheme is something that's been discussed with the local authorities in COSLA at this particular point in time. So work is ongoing, and I think that will continue for the foreseeable months, and obviously it has been the case. Members will be kept updated as that progresses.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Devine, I don't think there's any other questions. Can we agree this report? Okay, report's agreed. We're now on to item 2. Can we agree to this report?
Can I ask a question of Gordon again?
Of course, Councillor Devine.
Gordon, you'll be very well aware of, I'm pretty sure most of the councillors on this board will have complaints as well about the amount of rats that we're seeing now in our communities. Is there anything the council can, and I know we're limited, but is there anything the council can do? There just seems to be a huge upsurge in complaints about rats, and I'm talking about in and around houses rather than, seeing them, where you should see them around about rivers and such.
If it's okay, I'll bring in Crystal Rimple just to respond to Councillor Devine.
Thanks, Gordon. Thanks, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Devine, for the question. We have seen some increase, but not that massive with regards to rats. We think some of the behaviours have changed with regards to rats and lockdown, etc. But where there are any problems, we would still encourage people to contact the Pest Control Department for ourselves to go out and assess if there is an issue. As the board is aware, through the Infrastructure, Land and Environment Board, a charge was brought in earlier this year in April for pest control contracts. Therefore, if it's in someone's house or garden, there will potentially be a charge. If they are a council tenant, then that will be charged to the HRA. So it's one we're keeping a very close eye on, Councillor Devine, and it's one we're working hard to remove as far as we possibly can.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, Councillor Jacqueline Cameron, you have a question?
Thanks, Cathy. Sorry, the Q buttons went 3 times because it's stuck. Okay, yeah, it was a comment on points in section 4.16 and 4.7 The first point was just to thank the social transport team for the work that they've done in delivering food parcels, and also for the support that they've given the Health and Social Care Partnership in delivering community meals and the PPE from Dyke Bar. It was really crucial work, and I think it was a really good example of how integration works so well, and how we all pulled together during this pandemic. So I wanted to thank the team for that, and also understand that some elements of that work will be going forward when things get back to relatively normal. My second point was 4.7 about the roads programme, and I fully appreciate that, like Renfrewshire Council, that all local authorities was following national guidance, and it was right that they did, and right that the road work stopped because public health had to be the priority. But unfortunately for Johnston, that meant that the roads that were programmed between April and July, aren't going ahead. So, my colleagues, Councillor Steele and Councillor Rodden in Ward 9 have been pretty vocal in asking for these roads to be resurfaced, and I know that the community were delighted that they were on the programme. So my question is, can we ask when we can expect these roads to be resurfaced, and if there's any plans for temporary solutions in the meantime?
Okay, Councillor Mclaren. Councillor Cameron. Gordon, will you answer Councillor Cameron's question?
Certainly, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Cameron. Yes, as you say, between the 1st of April and the 9th of July, construction works were not allowed to be undertaken under the lockdown and the Scottish Government's route map. So during that time period, there were circa 30 jobs, resurfacing schemes that were unable to be undertaken. Because we have to give 3 months notice period within the roadwork register, that actually essentially took us up to the kind of 9th of October. And in terms of the resurfacing programme, we always look to finish that just after the October school holiday, which is round about the kind of 20th of October. So the vast majority of those jobs have and will be unable to be undertaken this year. What we are planning to do, though, is schedule those as the first jobs that can take place from March time next year. So we will look to undertake those jobs between March and May next year. We will, obviously, March is can still be subject to the weather we receive, so it'll be March, April. If March suits for the weather, we will undertake them then. If not, it will be in April time that we'll start those works. For the jobs that were unable to be undertaken, all of those roads will be inspected over the next couple of months, and where there are requirements to undertake repairs and patchwork to keep them in a suitable condition until they can be fully resurfaced, that will be undertaken in the autumn time.
Okay, thanks, Gordon. Councillor James Mclaren, I think you want to ask a question.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. You can hear me now.
James, yes, I can hear you.
Good. Just on page 13, the paragraph 4.9, it talks about the Assets and Infrastructure Community Investment Fund. I'm very interested in this, and I see there's a consultation planned for later on in the autumn. I'd like to be kept informed about this, please, and I'll make sure the community councils in my ward are aware of it all. The other thing I wanted to say was on the carriageway resurfacing on page 21. One of the roads that's down for resurfacing, and I believe it's taken place, is the A8 Greenock Road at Kingston Road, which is about the 10th one down from at the start of carriageway resurfacing. I just wanted to know, has that resurfacing been done on the area that was originally planned? Because my understanding is that the Dargable Development Trust have been wanting to reduce the height of a sewer there to allow the playing fields to be drained properly, and that's been planned for quite some time now. And if this resurfacing has been done before this work's gone ahead, why did that happen? And it does seem to be a mistake on someone's part to allow this to happen. I think it might well be that the contractor's resurfaced more than he should have done. Is that correct?
Gordon, do you want to answer that question?
Thanks, Convener. Can I bring in Jerry Hanna to answer Councillor Mclaren's question? That's okay.
Of course.
Hi, Councillor McLaren. We've been dealing with the contractor on that particular job, and we've just had discussions with them this morning. In terms of our resurfacing works for that particular job have been on the roadworks register for about 6 months. It's one that we'd been known about for quite some time. We had late engagement from the contractor that was doing the work in the sewer round about the end of July. The initial suggestion from the contractor was that they weren't going to have to excavate any of the road, and they were going to be doing some excavation round about the soft verges. That being said, we're continuing to work with the contractor to get a solution for the sewer works in there, and any work that requires a small section of the road having to be dug up to allow the sewer connection to be made, then that would have to be relayed in line with the surface that's just been put down. But we'll continue to engage with the contractor in the community on that particular one.
Thank you. I would be concerned if the Development Trust, which is still in the process of trying to get money together, funds for various projects, is going to be penalised for this in any way, and hopefully everything can be sorted out amicably. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Adam McGregor.
Thank you, Convener. Just a couple of notes, a couple of comments really. The first one's on item 4, household waste and recycling. I think it's really important that we thank all the workforce for being able to continue this essential frontline bin collections throughout the whole COVID pandemic. Unlike other neighbouring authorities, I believe that was the first thing that they actually looked at rescheduling, and I know how greatly appreciated it's been from the residents of Renfrewshire, the fact that we didn't have any disruption when it came to the bin collections. So I think I'd like to say that. Street scene, I know I mention it at every meeting, but I think it has to, it has to be mentioned. I'd like to thank in particular Paul Richardson for his exceptional work that he done. I believe he was the individual that removed 200 bags from the Stanley Reservoir. So, I mean, it goes up beyond, so really a tremendous thank you for all of them. 4.2, I see it says 920,000 successful application for the Transport Scotland low carbon travel. So I'd like some more details about that. I know it says it ties in with the improvement programme that we've already got in place. So if I could get some details about that, because people have gone to me all the time, and I did ask Mark Kigglebotham for it. And lastly, 4.25, it says that you've been successful for the carbon, I think it was like £38,000 or something, to help with provisions of electric bikes. So my question there would be, if you had could you look at maybe out of that intake that you're looking at, whether you could look at a tricycle, an electric tricycle, obviously to allow disabled patrons to take part in that. So I think that's it. Just extra 300 members have signed up during lockdown to team up to clean up, so I think that speaks for itself. Yeah. So well done, Nicola and our team.
Yes. A couple of questions there, Gordon.
Thanks, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Adam McGregor. Noted the points about you've asked for more details on the funding, so we'll get that. And obviously, in relation to the tricycle, absolutely, we'll make that inquiry as well in relation to that funding to see what can be done.
Very good.
Okay, before I bring the next speaker in, Councillor McGregor, you were right to mention the volunteer work there. It is absolutely impressive. Team Up to Clean Up, yes, you're absolutely correct. It's increased by 300 members during lockdown, and actual increase in litter picks 72%. That is absolutely outstanding during this very difficult time, and you were right to say that. Absolutely outstanding. So can I now bring in Councillor Hood?
2 minutes.
No problem, John. Do you want me to bring the next speaker in before you, John? Allow you to those 2 minutes. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
No,
all right. So can I?
I've got it now, right?
You got
right.
it now, John. On you go.
Right, thank you. Right. Some of my questions have been answered. The first question I've got is obviously potholes is an issue just now. So we've still got the team going out doing the filling the potholes. What's the average turnaround for the team to fill a pothole? And my second question is, we're talking about mice again. If a council tenant's got mice in the house and they're on benefits, it's not the council tenant that pays for it. Is it the HRA that pays for that?
Is that you, John?
That's me. Yeah, sorry.
No problem. So 2 questions there, Gordon.
Councillor McEwen, is okay if I could ask Jerry Hannah to answer the first of Councillor Hood's questions on potholes, and then thereafter if Chris Dalrymple could come in to answer the one just to clarify matters around payment. Okay,
thank you. Right, Jerry?
Thanks very much, Councillor Hood. In terms of the pothole classifications, we class them in 3 ways. They're either classed as a 24-hour repair, a 5-day repair, or a 28-day repair, just in terms of where they are in the road, what road they're on, the depth, etc. For the quarter we're in just now, the pothole completion target is sitting at 80% across all the 3 areas. Obviously, there's a scale in terms of a 24-hour repair, for instance, is an emergency repair. There might not be time for a permanent repair to be carried out. So what is done in those circumstances is the pothole will be filled within the 24-hour timescale, and that there's a process now in place within the system that's then flagged up that a permanent repair has to be carried out thereafter.
Right, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. Chris?
Good afternoon, Councillor Hood. Thanks for the question. You're absolutely correct. If it is a council tenant, then they will be charging it to the HRA, and that process has been put in place. So for a council tenant, yes, it will be charged to the HRA.
Right, thank you.
Okay, right. Councillor Mylett?
Thanks, Convener. It was just to ask a question on the fly tipping. Obviously, it's something that's kind of hit us a wee bit harder through the lockdown, through obviously no fault of ours. But I just when I read it, it actually said that we're engaging with SEPA, but I know there's other legislation out there, including planning acts, and I'm just wondering if we've at any time sort of liaised with planning.
Okay. Chris, do you want to answer that question?
Thank you, Convener, and thank you, Councillor Mylett. You're absolutely correct, Councillor. We look at every option that's open to us for fly tipping, whether that be planning under the Environmental Protection Act or liaising with SEPA. It depends on the scale of the fly tipping. Some of the ones we've been involved in recently were more an unlicensed landfill site, which is therefore SEPA's jurisdiction. So a short answer is yes, we look at every avenue open to us, including fixed penalty notices and reports to the Procurator Fiscal.
Okay. Chris, it's my understanding as well that the community are really working with us in this, and we're getting a lot more phone calls regarding fly tipping and letting us know who done it or pointing us in the right direction. I know that has got so much better, the community and the council working together to really address fly tipping. Now,
you're absolutely right, Convener. Yep.
Councillor Burns.
Thanks, Kathy. It was just to pass on the thanks about the bin men and women. I will say women as well. They've been absolutely brilliant. The collections, the staff have been magnificent. Also the team up to clean-up page. Gordon, could we get some more money for more litter pickers? There's 140 out to community. It's been absolutely brilliant. Fly tipping. some of the points in that I'll pick up on. Anything that's been reported, it's been lifted. I would probably say anything I've reported at 8 o'clock at night, it's been gone by 10 o'clock the next morning. The work's been tremendous. Thanks for that.
Stephen, you're absolutely right. And I think we need to congratulate all our staff, you know, as well as the waste servicing. They've really shown great commitment and resilience during this really difficult time. They've delivered essential service. Also, volunteers, as I've already said, have supported frontline services. They really deserve our admiration.
Yeah, they've done well. Thanks, Cathy.
Okay, Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Convener. I just wanted to bring up a small point in relation to item 4.21 on page 15, in relation to the improved sort of work, so volunteer work for part of the Team Up to Clean Up. It's great to see that we've got new volunteers coming out, especially given the length of time that we've now went into Team Up to Clean Up, and that is very welcome news. However, I would hate for that to be an undoing. I know that the Forestry Commission changed their contractors as to bin collections, and there was a little bit of an issue regarding individuals placing waste at the bin and it not being collected. I know the communication has changed now, and that there has I'm looking forward to improving now, and that hopefully that issue should be resolved. However, as much as that may be the Forestry Commission's responsibility, any of that rubbish that flies around, I'm sure that the council would end up getting calls about, and I think it's unfair on those volunteers that have worked so hard to not just clean up the area but to also sustain the area, to try and encourage our green spaces to be as strong as they can be, for them to be then littered in that way. It's very disheartening. So it's just if there could be some level of communication with the Forestry Commission to ensure that that is resolved, and that the community don't then have to end up picking up on something that is a service that should be dealt with by them. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Campbell. I'm quite sure that will be done. I don't see any other questions. And
there is Cathy.
Oh, sorry, have I missed somebody?
Somebody's got their hand up, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Karen. Sorry, Councillor Kennedy. I've just seen that now. Councillor Karen Kennedy.
It's just a comment following on from Stephen's comments regarding fly tipping. I myself have had to call in several cases of fly tipping. I'd just like to say I find it appalling that constituents have to contact their councillors before they actually get this fly tipping picked up. This fly tipping should be getting dealt with when a constituent phones in and reports it. They don't have to report it over and over again and then go on to their councillor. So just like that to note, please.
Absolutely noted, Councillor Kennedy. Right, okay. And I just really don't think there's anybody else. I'll just really finish off by saying I know we've had a lot of congratulations to Team Up Clean Up, and that's right. And I really do, as far as the chap and his friends that have went in with the kayak into the River Car, absolutely amazing. And I'm told that he's going to be receiving a Heroes Award from Save Scotland Beautiful, and it's very, very much deserved. So could we agree this report? Agreed, right. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
It was a Councillor Burns had wanted in, but we've agreed the report. Okay, thanks.
That okay.
Fine, Cathy. Agreed. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So we'll now go on to item 3, roads and transportation, and it's the Transportation Transition Recovery Plan. Can we agree this report? Right.
No, Cathy.
Yes, I see you. See you, Eddie. Councillor Devine.
Okay. It's on cycleways and the spaces for people. Every single one of us received an email this morning from a businessman in Glasgow Road, and I've got another businessman in the Glasgow Road who is extremely concerned by the non-consultation that's been going on. Now, the email I got, and I'm not going to name the guy's business because I don't want I want somebody to go and see them. It names people on there who are not doing their job properly. That's what this man says. And there's another business out there who is extremely annoyed about these things being put in place without consultation with the shopkeepers. Between these two businesses, they employ dozens of people. Do we really want people to be put out of job because we cannot consult properly with people? We got an email at 3 minutes past 11, sorry, telling us he had a consultation on cycleways, which lasted 1 week. Apparently we've had 160 responses, but it doesn't say what all responses were or who they are. But one of the responses is not in favour of parking provision that would affect local businesses. Now, I've also been to Wells Street for what I can only describe as a complete and utter shambles. Now, I met with the shopkeepers down there at their insistence, Councillor Kennedy as well. They're not in the least bit happy. Now, we thought we'd got this sorted out. When I say we, I thought it was sorted out, and most certainly the shopkeepers, when the meeting was finished, were over the moon and thought they were going to get something done. That has never happened. In fact, it's got even worse. So, again, they said they were not consulted. So, what faith do we have in, or what faith should they have in this council that they're actually going to consult with people? Because they can't all be wrong. All these shopkeepers in Wells Street and the Glasgow Road cannot be wrong. So I would like to know who's to blame for this and what they're going to do to sort it out.
Okay, Eddie, you'll know this report is saying that we're now reviewing feedback from the consultation and incorporating that feedback into the final designs. That's important, but I'll pass you on to Gordon.
Sorry, convener, and I'm not disagreeing with you in the entirety. What I'm saying, it says in the report there's one's been agreed, unless I'm reading it properly, and there's other ones we're going to look at. And I know you got an email from Kenny Mclaren. I'm sure Kenny will be delighted that I'm bringing it up, saying that the people in Canal Street been consulted with in this, because it just seems to have jumped from Well Meadow. We'll take that out and we'll stick it into Canal Street. Now, the only reason the people in Well Meadow got the place sorted because they stuck together and they got it sorted, and the council backed down, quite rightly. But you have to do something about the people and businesses in Wells Street and the Glasgow Road. Are you going to be responsible, convener, for people getting put out of a job? I'm sure you don't want that, but what I want you to do is to tell me how this consultation can be done properly.
Okay, first thing, I'm not responsible for people being taken off a job. That is not my responsibility. Okay. Now, you asked quite a few questions there, Eddie. You brought quite a few things up, and you want an answer to that. And I think we also have to take on board the reason that we're doing it in the first place. But I'll pass now that on to Gordon. There's quite a few things brought up there, so if you can address some of those issues regarding consultation. Gordon.
Thanks, convener. I'm going to bring Jerry Hannah in just to talk to it, if that's okay. And I suppose just to break it down into the two areas, there's one which is on the widening of the footways, which I think Councillor Devine was referring to around the Glasgow Road and Welmeadow Street. And then there's the second aspect, which is the temporary cycle lanes, which is going through the feedback from the consultation at the moment. But I'll ask Jerry to come in and expand on both, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. Jerry?
Thanks, convener. In terms of the footway widening measures, what we've given a commitment to is revisit all of the businesses who have been included within the schemes here, recognising that the measures have been in place for a few weeks now, not just the Wells Street, not just the Glasgow Road, but across the entire area, to get feedback from each individual business as to how the scheme is operating for them and to try and incorporate feedback from them into what we can do going forward. We recognise that these are temporary measures, and although we'd said there was short consultation periods, we recognise that we need to respond to the requests and needs of the businesses throughout this. That being said, what I would say is, having been in Glasgow Road the last couple of days, the widened areas has been very well utilised, particularly now the school's back. Well Street, the widened pedestrian area there is being used as a queuing system for the butcher shop. So there will be some scope to make some changes there, but what we want to do is, rather than visit one or two of the businesses, we want to kind of do that as far and wide as we possibly can. To pick up on the cycling, the temporary cycle lanes, what was clear from the consultation on the temporary cycle lanes was that there were some positive comments, there were some negative comments. That then has been provided to our design teams, who can then take that forward. A significant amount of the consultation feedback can then be incorporated into final designs. But what was clear about the Well Meadow area was that that was going to prove challenging to try and deliver, and there was a suitable alternative there that existed. In terms of what happens next, then, Councillor Devine, to answer your point on that, the proposal is then that once we have these designs back, we would be going back out to say, almost like you've had your feedback and this is what we've done, this is what it looks like now, what do you think now? So that we can make sure we take that consultation on board again.
Okay. I can see Councillor Devine has just left his seat. Yeah, he's coming back in. Councillor Devine, Jerry's answered some of your questions there, and I can see that you've put that you want to come in again. By all means do that. I've got a few councillors now wanting to ask questions, but Councillor Devine, do you want to say anything else?
It's not upsetting anybody. I don't believe a word of what I've heard, because I heard words 2 weeks ago and nothing's happened. I've got shopkeepers who will back me up. I've got you put out a consultation for 1 week. 1 week it was on, apparently it was on the internet. What about people that don't have internet and don't go on it and don't really are not that closely involved in what happens until they walk out their house one morning and there's a barrier up and it's there. And then who do they turn to? They turn to the councillors in the area, and they blame the councillors in the area, when in fact the councillors in the area haven't even had any feedback from any of the officers or any of the stuff. I've asked for the responses, so I've got no faith in a 1 week response on 9 cycleways. I've got no faith in what I've heard, that people will be consulted, because nobody's been back to talk to the people on Well Street, as far as I understand it. Nobody's been back to talk to the people in Glasgow Road, the 2 businesses, and I'll share it with the officers after the meeting, because I don't want to embarrass them, because they might not want to be people to see this. But quite clearly, this council is not doing its job properly. It's not consulting with the people that need it, and not for 1 week. That is just pathetic.
Okay, Councillor Devine, as you've said, you can have a conversation with Jerry afterwards and speak about some of the comments that you have made there just now. Okay, Councillor James Mclaren. Hello, James.
Hi, Cathy. Thanks for letting me come back in again. This is item 3, and I wanted to express concern. A lot of the buses were taken off or had a reduced service during the first few months of the virus in the lockdown, and Bridge of Weir was no exception. But as things have opened up, the bus service from Bridge of Weir to Johnston is still suffering, and not. It's I really looking for some some help to ensure that the bus service operated by McGill's, but it's SPT supported, is up and running again, and going to be kept on the go for the next while anyway, and longer. That's one thing. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about was the cycleway from Bridge of Weir to Greif High School. I'm surprised that so much work is having to be done for something that is only temporary. I was looking for the time scale for when this cycle lane from Bridge of Weir to Houston will be up and running, please.
Okay, Jerry, can you answer that question?
Hi, Councillor Mclaren. In terms of your question regarding the bus services from McGill's, they returned to their full service from the 3rd of August. There was a question about another service the other day, and I took that back to them, and I'm quite happy to do that with this particular service as well, to get some feedback from them. But as far as we're aware, the services are now, even the supported services are now back up and running at 100% pre-COVID conditions. In terms of the Bridge of Weir to Houston cycle lane that we talked about, although the vast majority of the works out there will be temporary in nature due to the road widths and certain conditions in and around the area there will be the need for some permanent works to be carried out in order to support this. So in terms of the design for this one, it's just slightly longer, and we're expecting that we should have that design back between the kind of mid to late September for that one.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. Okay, Councillor Mclaren.
So that's the design work, but we're still not talking about construction and when it will be open. You know, the parents of children at Greif were expecting to have something by now. It just seems to be taking an awful long time. Do you know when it's likely to be actually, if the work's still to be contracted out, when are we talking about, you know, summer of next year before this is ready?
Before I bring you in, Jerry, I know you're asking the question, James, but a very difficult question to answer in this particular time when we've got COVID and we don't know what's happening next. But Jerry, do you best to answer that question?
No problem, Convener. In terms of the design work for this, Councillor Mclaren, we only had the funding approved for this in the last week or so. So now that we've got that confirmed in place, we've arranged with the design team to be on board very quickly. We're expecting them to turn that round fairly quickly as well. I wouldn't like to sit here and give you a date in terms of what I would expect in case anything from the design or site investigation flags anything up untoward. But I would certainly be hoping to better summer next year, that's for sure. But what we will do is once we've got the design back, we will engage obviously with the ward members so that you're kept up to speed with things.
Okay, thanks for the update. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Jerry. Councillor Hood.
Hi there. Hopefully.
Your mic.
Mike.
Your mic is okay.
Right, hear me now? Yeah.
Right.
Two questions. One's just a follow on from Councillor Mclaren. Is Jerry, you know I was talking about the buses the other day, but I can tell you right now they are not running to schedule. Even though they're saying, I have contacted them myself with certain details, and it's just not the number 20, it's the 38 as well. So I think they're havering a wee bit like they usually do. But my second question, which is the one that we've been talking about most, is the barriers, and it doesn't affect what you've got McGill's as well. The barrier that they put up in front of Iceland and Johnston is actually, if there's a car stops or if somebody is crossing a road, it actually creates a traffic jam, and because it's also a pickup point for Iceland for people phoning taxis. And if there's one there, it's because of the traffic lights. It could be a way back to Morrison's. So I would like you to have a look at that. And it was actually one of the taxi companies that somebody that stays close to myself that had said that they are having real problems with that. So if you could look at that when you're doing your consultation again. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Howden. I'm quite sure that will be looked at. Can I now bring in Councillor Cameron?
Oh, thanks, Cathy. Yeah, it's a really obvious point to make, and it's quite clear in the paper that this funding has come from the Scottish Government, but I think there is a kind of feeling in in the community that we're spending money on something that people, some people aren't supportive of. But I just really want to make it clear that the funding was for that and that alone. And it's not come from our revenue streams, and I know people get confused about budget streams, but I think I just wanted to say that on record. And also I wanted to say generally that the money is for social distancing, and I've been quite disheartened to see the lack of social distancing, not just in Renfrewshire but generally. So I think we should not lose sight of the fact that this is to keep us safe, and just also encourage people to keep social distancing. I try my best, but it's a bit like driving. You have to rely on other drivers to be safe too. So I just wanted to make that point.
That's a good point, Councillor Cameron. Yes. Councillor Burns?
Thanks, Cathy. It's just a question on page 25, 3.4, bus priority rapid. Could I get some more information? Because I'm at on page 28 isn't clear. Just if we could get information, is this bus lanes or we're looking at, or whatever it is, can we get a further update on it? Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Burns, you're right to ask that. Okay, so can that be done then? Okay, Jerry.
Councillor Burns, yeah, absolutely. We'll arrange to provide an update to members. Really, where it's at just now is purely an ideas stage in terms of identifying the main corridors, the bus routes across Renfrewshire, and where that connects to and from other local authority areas, and then really looking at what's possible in that area. So is it possible to look at temporary pop-up bus lanes? Is it possible to look at configuring the traffic lights to give a bit more green time to buses, looking at any additional restrictions that need to be put in place? So it's really at an idea stage now. What we will then do is come back and to this policy board, and any further actions that we are proposing to be taken would obviously come back to the board for approval.
Right, thanks, Jerry. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Devine, are you back in again?
Yeah, is that not what the board's for? No, ask questions.
Councillor Devine, you know fine well that's what the board is for. That's why I'm asking.
I was just going to say there's other councillors before me, but I'll ask my question. Sorry, it's not a question. Somebody asked about the whether we're going to be permanent. I think it was Jane Mclaren, permanent or temporary. But at the emergency board, Gordon said that temporary could be, it's basically open-ended. If I've mispronounced there, Gordon, you can certainly tell me so. But when I asked you the question, how long was temporary, you said it was basically whenever. I hope I've no put words in your mouth, but that's what you said. It's on record.
Okay, so that's your question, Eddie.
Just to clarify, you're absolutely correct, Councillor Devine. You asked what the definition of temporary was. Asked the definition of what temporary was, and there is no defined period for that. But in relation to the funding, the period that's been talked about, could be from 6 to 18 months. Was talked about, but obviously when the funding came out, we were very early in the pandemic. We're obviously still in the pandemic, and obviously where we are with the pandemic in Renfrewshire and wider, I'm sure will have an influence on how long we need to or want to keep measures in place. So hopefully that aligns with what I said at the emergency board, Councillor Devine.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Adam McGregor.
Thank you.
Are you there, Councillor McGregor?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I was just saying that I would like to dedicate some time after the meeting, Gordon, to sit down with yourself and Jerry to discuss, because obviously I have been contacted by some residents within Glasgow Road that feel as if there's been a lack of communication between the two of you, so I would like that. But that's with regards to spaces for people. But with regards to the cycle lane, can I just have some clarity in the proposals for Glasgow Road? Are you talking about putting them up the middle of Glasgow Road? Because I know I suggested that 3 years ago and nobody liked it, but that's what I've heard now. It seems to be the proposal. So if I can just get some clarity on that.
Okay. Can we have some clarity on that, Jerry?
In terms of the design there, Councillor Adam McGregor, we're expecting that probably back kind of mid-September-ish for the designs for that particular section. That has an idea that's been suggested both from some of our own team and taken on board previous views that there was a school of thought that potentially could have looked at putting cyclists up the middle section. So really what we've asked the design team to go and look at is what's the safest option and come back to us and allow us to kind of then review it and see what the best option is going forward. But I don't have that back as yet. But again, once we do have that, we'll come back to members and share that information.
Okay. Okay. I can just see one more speaker. So if I can, Councillor Audrey Doig.
Kathy, I've been waiting for the beginning practically to get in.
Oh, Karen, my apologies. I don't see your name coming up at all, but my apologies. If you want to come in now, that's not a problem. And then I'll ask Councillor Doig to come in. So, Councillor Kennedy.
Thanks, Kathy. It's just to go back to the carry on at Wells Street with these barriers. I've met with shopkeepers down there who are extremely concerned that their businesses are going to fail. The majority of them have seen a 50% decrease in the sales. These barriers went up. I don't know if anybody's been up and down Wells Street. It's a nightmare with traffic, which has only been made worse with these barriers going up, to the extent that a young boy was knocked down the other day. Now, that may not be directly related to these barriers, but it certainly is not helping the flow of traffic in that street. Shopkeepers are still on at me even today to ask what is happening with them. They've had nobody back down to speak to them again, which I'm obviously going to arrange with Jerry to go back down and have a talk with them. I've also got a question on the proposed cycle path in Canal Street. I'm delighted that it's been moved from, it's not going to go ahead at Brimland Street, Well Meadow Street. But can I ask why we're proposing having a cycle path on Canal Street when there already is a dedicated cycle path just over the wall from there?
Okay, so that was two questions there, Karen. I'm quite sure Jerry will come along with you to speak to the shopkeepers in Wells Street.
Yeah, we're going to arrange that. That's
good. So the other question, Jerry, about the cycle path in Canal Street, I think that was the second question, was it, Karen? Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
All right. So Jerry, could you?
Yeah, absolutely. The rationale, I suppose, behind looking at the Canal Street, Councillor Kennedy, is the potential for then looking at a shared bus and cycle lane facility on that stretch of road to see if that would be viable. Again, what we're seeing very much at this stage is we're going through a design process that will tease out all of these sorts of things to see would that make sense, what are the obstacles. And I need to reiterate, nobody's particularly precious about these things. If they work, great, and if it's proven that they're not going to work, then so be it, and that's the case. So really, again, once we get that information back from the designers, we'll be able to weigh that up and look at what the options are going forward.
Okay.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mclaren, I can see that you were going to ask a question on that as well. Do you feel that that's been answered? James? But you hear me, James?
Yes.
Okay.
I can't come in, but I can hear you.
Okay. I was just to say, do you feel that your question has been answered by Jerry?
I just wanted I just wanted to agree with Karen's point. It does seem crazy having a dedicated cycle lane next to the cycle path. Thank you. Okay.
To finish off, because I don't see any more, Councillor Audrey Doig.
Hi, Jerry. I'm just a bit confused because the cycle path that is going to be basically put in place from Houston to Bridgeweir for the cycle path. Houston Community Council got a grant from Sustrans of £10,000 to do an investigation to make sure that this proposal was viable. Has that money been spent on that, looking at, or has this money been put in abeyance, or do you know anything about it?
Well, I'll ask Jerry to answer, but I'm quite sure that you'll probably have another meeting with Jerry to discuss that further. But Jerry, do you have anything to say now?
Councillor Doig, I'd be happy to meet with you and discuss that separately. It's not something I've got a lot of knowledge about, to be perfectly honest with you, but it's something I'm happy to talk to you about to see if I can get more information about it.
Okay, is that okay?
Yeah, if you contact me by email, Jerry, we can arrange to have a face-to-face, but it would be interesting because this money was a few months ago. I think it was just before Christmas that they were given the money for Sustrans to do the investigation. So I might try and get some feedback from Houston CC. Unfortunately, they do their meetings by Zoom, but I'll see if I can get any feedback by email from them to find out what they've done with it.
Okay, no problem.
Right. Okay, now I can see that there's another two members want to ask questions, and that's not a problem, I'll allow that. But then after that, I think we should go on to item 4. So can I ask that now, Councillor Jennifer Adam McGregor?
Right, Cathy, that's great. Really, I just checked my emails there and I've got 3 emails from local constituents really quite concerned about pop-up lanes in Glasgow Road, Jerry. So is that something entirely different then that you're going to be looking at installing sooner? And whereabouts are they?
Okay, Jerry.
The pop-up lanes are just the temporary cycle lanes that we've spoke about, and that are covered by obviously the communication I think you would have received earlier in terms of the design process for that. So that's when we're talking about pop-up cycling lanes, that's what we're talking about here.
So I don't see any proposals but for Glasgow Roads. Have I missed that?
Sorry, I think that's what the original kind of consultation was out on. It was on looking at the Glasgow Road area in Paisley. That was one of the areas we consulted on. So that's an area one of our design teams is taking forward just now for us then to have a look at what they come back to us with to then decide whether that can proceed or not.
So they're not going to pop up over the next couple of weeks or anything? You're looking at design period in September. There would be consultation with everybody else before we look at implementing that? Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay, now to finish off, Councillor Davidson. Caroline Davidson.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Right. Yeah, I just was going to ask a question about Cossey Side Street and Barhead Road, where the proposals for cycle lanes are there, especially with Cossey Side Street being particularly busy with traffic. So I did see the plans when they first came in, but they weren't very clear. So that's all. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, Jerry, you take that on board.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Davison. Obviously, the comments that they're put in at the time for each of those proposed areas, the Barhead Road one particularly aligned to try and support the kind of the travel to and from school. Cossey Side Street was looking at supporting people accessing public transport, cycling to the rail station, for instance, or getting into the town centre by bicycle. So that was the kind of rationale behind those two. But again, those two will go through the processes, the same process as the rest. Once we have the detailed designs, we'll then be able to come back and share those with you to see whether we can proceed with them or not.
Okay. 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 All right. That was quite a few questions. Can we agree the report? Okay, thank you. Can we now go on to item 4, which is the community engagement and biodiversity areas? And I can see that right away we have Councillor Burns' question.
Hi, Cathy. Just regarding the community engagement, I think Gordon will tell you, I've been around a couple of sites. Some of the residents have got concerns. There is a couple that are quite keen for it, but there's quite a few residents which is outside their property. Could I ask that the Tenants and Residents Association in Glenburn and any of the other Tenants and Residents Association also get feedback where they can input into the consultation? And would it be possible if any of the residents adjacent or outside their properties could be lettered? Because some people don't have the internet, particular residents that's outside their door. Thank you.
Okay, Stephen, good question. Gordon, are you wanting to answer that one, or do you want?
No, I'm happy to come in on that. Absolutely, our intention is to contact community councils and local partnerships, but if there's tenant and resident associations that you'd like us to write to as well, we can do that. That's no problems. In relation to properties in closest proximity to the areas we're seeking to get views on, then yeah, that is our intention to contact those properties directly to advise in case they haven't seen the online proposals.
Okay, thanks for that, Gordon. Thanks.
Councillor Cameron, Jacqueline Cameron.
Thanks, convener. Yeah, similar point. I'd already actually got the answer from Gordon, but because it's not in the paper, I just wanted to have it on record that Gordon had agreed that the streets nearest the panels would be lettered, because I had a few residents in Elderslie concerned that they didn't have access to internet and wanted to put their views in writing. Also, again, Gordon's answered the question, but I just wanted to make it clear that the people who are nearest the panels, their postcode will go into the survey or in the letter, and their views will carry more weight. I just wanted to clarify that. And finally, people were asking about the size of the panels, and they didn't think they married up with some of the addresses. But again, Gordon had explained to me that in some instances it will only be part of the panel that will be used for biodiversity. So I just, if Gordon wouldn't mind going over that again, I know you've already answered me, Gordon, but just for the record for the meeting, I would appreciate that.
Okay. Gordon?
Yeah, thanks, thanks, Councillor Cameron. Yeah, obviously in the paper we've set out a broad description in terms of that location, but when you go to the survey, the map will show very clearly the area that is proposed for consideration as a biodiversity area, and in many cases that isn't entire panels. And we've also tried to set out, there'll be a 1-2 metre strip back from the footpath, and where there is a path through. We've tried to set that out within the maps as well, and we've given the description to try and make it as clear as possible, the area that is been put forward for consideration by our communities. Absolutely, we're asking for postcodes because we absolutely want to take two things. We want to take the community's views in general in terms of where they would like to see biodiversity areas in Renfrewshire, be that in around housing estates, community buildings, parks, roadside verges, grass roundabouts. But on the specific ones that we're consulting on, very much we'll want to ensure that the views of that local community are very much the views that we have to take account of in terms of the considerations and whether it's going to go forward and how they would like it to go forward.
Chair, there is an amendment.
Yes, I see that. Councillor Devine, I was going to ask you to come in next, but I do know that, yes, you've got an amendment.
Yeah,
Councillor Devine?
It should have been sent to every member by now. It was sent in, and I was assured it would be sent out to every member.
Just for clarification, the process is that you've now, Councillor Devine would be invited to speak. The situation would then be that you forwarded the amendment to the convener to ensure that it's competent and whether she's accepting it or not, and then dependent on that, we will put it on the public show conversation and all the members will see it there, Councillor Devine. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you.
Robert, I don't appear to see the amendment.
It has been sent. I can see it, Councillor. It's been sent to you. It's been sent to the chat between the convener and the clerks.
No, it's not here.
Okay, we'll see what we can do about that. Hold on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I will try and send on, if you wish me to put it onto the public chat just now, Councillor McEwen, and you can make a decision.
Okay, yes.
Okay, well, Tracy could ask you to do it because I don't have a copy of it just to hand. Okay.
Now, this is what I was meaning about technical issues. I can see that it's starting to say that members of the Infrastructure, Land and Environment Policy Board agree to delete, and I'm afraid I don't see any more after that.
Sorry, Councillor, do you want me to read it out? Just,
Yes.
It is on the public chat. Members of the Infrastructure, Land and Environment Policy Board agree to delete the recommendations set out in Section 2 and agree that a wider assessment should be carried out to include the following: a definition of biodiversity to ensure that it does not become just a byword for non-maintenance. Consideration should be made where safe walking routes to school pass through proposed areas. Similarly, area close to roads should be examined for the impact on road safety. Details of how the council proposes to engage with those communities who don't have access to online materials. The consultation period should be longer than 3 weeks. Explanation as to why this is not just a cost-saving exercise. This further assessment should be brought back to this policy board at the next cycle. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Devine is perfectly right to ask questions.
Can I speak to it, Convener, or do you want to?
Councillor Devine, of course you can speak to it, and then we'll decide whether we're going to take that or agree the report. Obviously, speakers in after you as well, but yes, do you have a seconder, Councillor Devine?
John Hood.
Right, okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Devine.
Yeah, you're right, Convener. This is not a good way of doing business, and I get the fact it's difficult. Since this, okay.
Yes.
Since this became public, I've had emails and phone calls from people, and I'll give you a list of where they're from. And I know there's other councillors here, Labour councillors here, who will obviously come in with their areas, but I agree with some of the stuff that the other councillors have come in with about consultation. Basically, I've had complaints from Glenburn, Foxbar, Fergusley, Dykebar, Hunter Hill, Lochfield, Erskine, Gallaghill, Hawkhead and Paisley East and Whitehall. The consultation I see from the papers are to run for approximately 2.5 weeks, from basically today till the 26th of September. And one of the, I can't remember which councillor it was, but basically said we should be consulting with the people who's going to be able to, or going to have to look out onto this. Now, I've not met anybody yet, I've not spoke to anybody yet who doesn't support biodiversity, but they certainly don't want 3 foot of grass outside their homes, and that goes for every single area I've mentioned. I don't think 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks is online is going to help, because we've already seen the shambles of the online questionnaire for cycleways and safe spaces. That hasn't worked either, and that's most of the councillors and all the parties have basically, and I won't put words in my mouth, but basically agreed to that. So I think it's an absolutely dreadful report, because when you look at the words, and I say, we're being asked to okay this, but the survey's supposed to start today. I mean, this is why we not had this before. I asked Gordon for a list of these areas probably 2 to 3 weeks ago, and when I got notice of them, which was last Thursday or Friday when I got the papers through my door, and since then the phone's hardly stopped ringing from the people who actually have had the chance to read it. So all I'm asking for is this be put on hold and it's properly conducted. And if anybody is not happy with what I'm asking, and what I would say is, come with me and have a meeting with the people who I've had the pleasure of listening to, who, as I say, not against biodiversity, but the areas that it's been advised or looked at are areas that were mainly the ones that, as I say, I can remember from 2011, 2012, are basically a lot of the ones then that were put on what was then called naturalisation. Now we've got the new buzzword of biodiversity, which we all know, and if we're being honest, it's basically a cost-cutting exercise. Well, it's not a grass-cutting exercise, that's for sure. But what we need is proper consultation with people. Now, we can do this and speak to community council and speak to the rest, fine. But that is probably not the people who's going to have 3 foot of grass outside their property. We've heard from, and I'm not going to mention them because I don't want to ruin their political careers, but we really need to get a grip of this. This is not the way to go. I'll leave it there, convener. Thanks.
Well, that's not a problem. Councillor Devine, the whole purpose of this report is to engage with the community. That's the whole purpose of it. And obviously we're going to listen to what the community say. If they say they don't want it, then they don't get it. Sorry, but I've listened to what you have to say, Councillor Devine.
You're not consulting with the community, you're consulting with some members of the community, not the people whose houses face onto this.
We will be consulting the people whose houses face onto this as well. Of course we will. Now, Councillor Hood, do you want to come in now? You're seconding the amendment. Councillor Hood?
Yeah, I'm trying to get in.
That's okay. That's okay.
Come on.
We can hear you.
We can hear you, Councillor Hood.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, can hear you.
Because it's coming up as which got a strike, but it doesn't matter. I've had a number of queries regarding it as well. We all went through the problem of the grass not getting cut over the period of lockdown, which was unfortunately unavoidable because of the issues with the quarantine. But I would like to know, as part of the motion, biodiversity. What is biodiversity? I seem to be repeating myself quite a lot, because naturalisation, biodiversity, it's sort of very similar, but to actually have a naturalisation or biodiverse area, it needs to be maintained properly. And the type of grass, and I have taken this under sort of consultation through professionals, the type of grass we've got, we can't do that. What we would have to do is strip off the grass and replant the right grass and the right flower, and then after that it's careful management of like 2 cuts a year, and the last cut needs to be what's got left, and then what they call stir raking, which then lets off the seeds. So I would like a bit of clarification if this is what's going to be done to the areas, or is it just going to be left to grow and go into clumps? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hood, you're right to ask for clarification. Gordon, do you want to answer that question?
Thanks, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Hood. Yeah, just to be very clear, that any panel that's been considered as a biodiversity area requires its own management regime for that panel. So you gave some examples there yourself, Councillor Hood, of what a management regime might be for a particular panel. So absolutely, it would be maintained. It would be cut at least annually. It might be twice a year, depending on the type of biodiversity and species that's there. So I just want to be very clear to the board that you're correct. 7-8 years ago, panels that at the time were considered as naturalised areas were left. There was no maintenance on them at all. What we're setting out very clearly here is every panel will be maintained. It will be maintained. There'll be I've already indicated, like the 1 metre, 2 metre strip from the footpath, sight lines, as well as any annual cuts or anything that would be required to ensure that the flora, the fauna, the plants and the wildlife are able to return and continue to grow year on year.
Okay, thanks, Gordon. Councillor Audrey Droig.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The areas that have been designated within my ward, I have absolutely no problem with the Linwood areas, because these areas have been parkland or, left to wild before. So I've had absolutely no complaints from the Linwood residents. I have had more complaints about this one subject than I've had anything else all year from the Houston sites. Basically because it's up in the oil fields where it's mainly all private housing, and some of them are down onto junctions and people are complaining about sight lines about them. I think that the areas within Houston, when it goes to the Houston Community Council, will all be rejected because of the amount of complaints that I've had from individuals and other groups. So my major concern is that the residents that have complained to me about the areas near their houses, that they're lettered and given a chance to reply either by letter or by online, are given the time to do this. So when do we expect the letters to go out, and can they reply by letter, or is it just online, which will not suit everybody that basically is in this area? Thank you.
Okay, Gordon.
Yeah, in relation to, obviously we set out today's date, so the intention would be that the survey would go live this afternoon, and information will come out to all elected members. We'll be planning to start writing to the households from tomorrow, so that will take place over the coming days. It will be into next week for some, but that will certainly be done. And absolutely, Councillor Doig, we will accept letters, emails, handwritten responses to those.
Okay, thank you. Councillor James Mclaren.
Thank you, Convener. So in my experience of being a councillor, any land that's been left to grow wild has indeed become wild. It's been turned into long grass, nettles and brambles. So I think residents are going to need much reassurance before they agree to this biodiversity plan. Some residents and myself are already concerned about the increase in rats in the area, and ticks, and is another issue that hasn't been touched on today, but it's more and more these things are becoming a problem in the area. And the long grass also can hide a lot of rubbish that can be dumped. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? In the winter time, the rubbish becomes visible again, and it's not great. So yeah, you say you're going to send out to members a link to this consultation so we can access it online. Is that correct? And mention was also been made about tenants and residents associations. Can we ensure that all tenants and residents associations are contacted, please? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Mclaren, I'm sure that will be done. Okay, Gordon. Councillor Kennedy.
Thanks, Cathy. I've been inundated with constituents that are concerned with this, in particular residents of Campbell Court and Spearsfield Court. Their area that's been proposed is the only grass area some of them have for their children to go out and play. Okay. They also have a problem with water running down that hill as it is. So they're very concerned about this being left. They're also expressing concerns over that actually being the only area that their children can play. There's concerns over dog fouling in the area as well. This long grass is obviously going to be hiding that. So can I also ask you to clarify, Cathy, you said after consultation, anyone that doesn't want it won't get it. Is that true? Because there's 81 proposed areas.
Yes, that is the case, Karen, without a doubt. If that's the message that's brought back, then that's it. It doesn't happen.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Campbell.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Sorry, it just took a wee second. It was doing that thing where there was a bit of a pause. So no, thank you very much, convener, for letting me come in on this. To reassure Eddie, I have been out with constituents in Erskine that have concerns about this, understandable concerns in relation to this aspect. And when it comes to consultation, convener, thank you very much for your support and me raising the fact with you directly, and that the neighbours that will be affected by this to their front and back would be my request. I have been out with officers in my local ward area to allow my constituents to raise those concerns directly. A lot of the issues regarding is it naturalised, is it biodiversity? We have had those discussions in this board. We have all agreed about the importance of climate change and how much of a positive impact biodiversity would have, and that there is a difference between biodiversity and naturalisation. I think that there is a need for that communication to be absolutely crystal clear to the community, to workers, and that's up to our officers to ensure that that occurs. And that is where I am really abundantly clear about that. And convener, thank you once again for also being very supportive of that viewpoint. I have absolute belief that this will make such a difference, but it does need to have the community is absolutely at the core in agreement to this. I want that direct input to the community, and for us to also tackle the climate change that's coming our way. We have had these discussions in this remit and in other boards as well about how much we need to do to make a difference to climate change. I appreciate that there'll be trepidation about how we do it, but it's about how we review these processes as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Cameron.
Cathy, Natalie was actually before me, so I'll let her come first as deputy, if that's okay.
That's no problem. Councillor Dawn.
Thank you. Yeah, a few of my points have been covered, but I'm just going over it again. I mean, I think we really do need to remember that biodiversity is a positive thing. We're talking about the past and things that have been done in the past, like naturalisation. This is something new. This is something that we have a chance to trial and put out there as a council. This isn't unique to Renfrewshire. This is happening throughout the country. There's councils doing this everywhere, and it looks fantastic. And I see a lot of positive comments online and people contacting me positively about it, asking if we can get this done here. Now, I'm not saying I have issues with some of the areas that are proposed for my ward. I'm not saying that there aren't issues, especially Bishopton. I noticed that quite quite a few are centred in one small area in Bishopton. I'm going to feed that back through the survey. I think that we've already covered the point that people close by will be lettered. That's relevant. I think community councils, tenants and residents, they are the people that know their communities best. I don't really think it's relevant for somebody sort of a mile away to be commenting on something that they are not going to be faced with every day. So I think that the way we're approaching this is the right way. In relation to the amendment, I mean, there's reference to wildflower areas, just that got commented on earlier about that it's just going to be left to grass. We've included, reference to including impacting sightlines and safe routes. And as I say, it's been covered for how people will be consulted. So this fits in with our climate emergency brief. Again, I'm just saying this is a positive thing. So I think that we need to, as councillors, try and champion this, support the survey and support our communities to give us their feedback and go on from there.
Well, okay. Thanks for that, Councillor Dawn. I have two more speakers, Eddie, and then I'll come back to you regarding the amendment. Now, Councillor Cameron.
Thanks. Sorry, I've jumped in too quickly there.
No,
similar points to Natalie, that I think that the amendments kind of moot in many ways because we have covered all the points, and I think that the paper adequately covers all the points. And in previous papers, we were clear it was never going to be a cost-saving exercise. It's going to have to be maintained in the winter time and cut back, and the cost of the wildflower seeds. We agreed that, you know, long before the pandemic. I know it seems like a long time away for us all, but we did talk about that then. So really the only point that I can see that hasn't been covered is the definition of biodiversity, and I don't think we should patronise our residents and constituents. I think they can Google online, and my laptop is currently sitting on the Oxford English Dictionary, so I can't look at it for myself to see what biodiversity means, but I've looked online. So yeah, it's a different word, but we're all used to jargon and you know, being clear about what these things mean. And I think that the general public know what we mean, and I've certainly explained to any constituents who've contacted me.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Cameron. And just to finish off with the speakers just now, Councillor Davidson, Caroline Davidson. Hello, Councillor Davidson. Oh no, she's put her hand back down. It's
still
not
on mute, Councillor Davidson.
No, I can see Councillor Davidson has now put her hand down. I don't know whether she wants to come in or not. It doesn't look like it. Eddie, going back to the amendment.
Sorry, Convener, I think Councillor Davidson is indicating she wants to come in, but she can't actually get off mute at the moment.
All right, okay. Well, we'll just allow her some time to get off mute. That's how I'd said at the beginning. Let's allow for pauses.
No, Councillor Davidson, sorry, you're still on mute. That's you now.
You can hear me now?
Yes, Caroline, I can hear you.
Right, good. Right, thanks, Cathy. Having some IT problems, unfortunately, with the internet.
I know the feeling.
Just want to emphasise again that biodiversity cannot just mean not cutting the grass. Now, there are some areas. Hunter Hill has had seems to have a disproportionate amount of areas compared to other wards. Ward 5 listed in these papers, there are 10 different areas we put to biodiversity, whereas there's one in Ralston, for example, you know, so that is, it's a ridiculous amount. I'm also seriously concerned that there's areas within Hunter Hill and the Hawkhead Estate that aren't listed in these papers, but they're not getting the grass cut. They've only had a metre round about it. So I've had umpteen phone calls. I hope you can still see me because my screens went blank.
I can see you, Caroline.
That's fine. I mean, places like Marnock Terrace, for example, Glen Shearer's not even mentioned in the papers, but they've not had their grass cut since 2012, and it's still not getting cut. These people pay their council tax the same as everybody else, and they don't want that looking straight out their front windows. And as Michelle said earlier, even their back windows, it can be their back door as well, because the weeds can come right up. Biodiversity, I'm all for it, but it shouldn't be in areas that are right outside people's front doors. you know, because it takes years for the wildflowers and things to come through and to grow. And I mean, some areas it can look absolutely beautiful. I do agree that, but it shouldn't be right outside people's houses. And again, the consultation, I know there's been quite a bit of talk on the consultation, but it has to be a further, wider, more meaningful consultation than online for a start. I know you mentioned putting letters out to people who's affected by it, but it has to be for a longer period as well. Less than 3 weeks is, I mean, if somebody's on holiday, they'll miss it, for example. So anyway, so if you can answer my questions as well about why there's some areas that aren't getting the grass cut yet. They're right around about it, which includes a lot of the Hawkhead Estate and Glen Shira, for example. And they're not listed here as being put to biodiversity, so why is the grass not getting cut? Thank you.
Okay, you're absolutely right to ask that question. Gordon, can you answer that? If they're not on the list, why they're still waiting to be cut?
Just to be clear, the areas on the list are the ones that we're consulting on. If there are other areas within your ward, Councillor Davidson, then we can pick up with the meeting just to understand where those are and then take the appropriate actions on those. So if you don't mind, we'll pick up with you after this board just to look into those and support you on those matters.
Yeah, that's fine. Can I come back in with one other wee point? It was mentioned about sightlines and safe routes. Barhead Road was mentioned in the last report about being a safe route, the cycle track for a safe route to school. But the grass all up and down Barhead Road has been left and is included in this report, has been left to biodiversity. That's not a safe route or a safe sightline. So can you explain why it's been included? Mm-hmm. And please, it shouldn't be included because it is supposed to be a safe walking route for kids to school.
Okay. Caroline, I think you should have further conversation with Gordon with that. You're right again, asking questions like that regarding safe routes. I don't know if you want to come in just now, Gordon. We have agreed item 3, but you are right to bring that up. Gordon, do you want to answer that, or do you want to have a conversation later with Caroline Davidson, Councillor Caroline Davidson?
Thanks, Gavina. Obviously, we'll pick up on some specifics, but I suppose just to clarify, and this obviously takes us right back to when grass was suspended and the process we took to reinstate the grass cutting. It's very important we have sight lines. It's very important that it's safe and grass does not become a barrier to either road safety or pedestrian safety. So that will be absolutely critical and mandatory to anything that was looked at. That if there was a management regime and there's a potential issue of a site or a safety issue, then it would be maintained in an area, so that was not the case.
Okay, thanks, Gordon. Councillor Devine, I'm not going to accept the amendment. I'm going to move that we agree the report and agree the recommendations. So,
can I sum up then, Convener?
Of course you can.
Okay. There's 22 areas mentioned in this biodiversity report with 81 sites. How could whoever did it get it so wrong? Every single councillor in this board has agreed that they've got problems in their area. Why was this not discussed before it was actually published? Now, to say, I'm getting a wee bit kind of upset with people thinking that folk are saying that, well, folk don't want it outside their door, but nobody's saying that biodiversity should not be done. But there's areas where it could be done, not in front of people's doors or behind people's doors or at the side of their door where they stay. That's just not acceptable. I'm not going to withdraw the amendment anyway, but I'm just being told that if Gordon's there, that it's a business in Welsh Street has just been phoned and told that if the businesses were not consulted, then the barriers will be coming down. Could you comment on that, Gordon?
Really, you're really just summing up Councillor
Yeah.
Devine?
Yeah, no, but I think well, that's up to you. If you want to rule it out of order, that's fine. I'm just been told that another councillor has phoned a shopkeeper and telling him that the barriers will be coming down if they weren't consulted. I would find that quite weird.
Okay, your comments are noted. My motion, do I have a seconder for my motion?
I'll second you, Cathy.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Dawn. Could we go to the vote now?
Yes, we have a motion by Councillor McEwen, seconded by Councillor Dawn, and we have an amendment by Councillor Devine, seconded by Councillor Hood. The vote will be by roll call, and I'll show you the councillors' names. If you could indicate whether you're voting for the motion or the amendment. Councillor Adam McGregor.
Motion.
Councillor Burns. Okay. Councillor Burns. Okay, we lost Councillor Burns. Councillor Cameron.
Motion.
Councillor Campbell.
Motion.
Councillor Davidson.
Amendment.
Councillor Devine.
Amendment.
Councillor Audrey.
Motion.
Councillor Dawn.
Motion.
Councillor Graham.
Amendment.
Councillor Hood.
Amendment.
Councillor Kennedy.
Amendment.
Councillor Kerr.
Amendment.
Councillor James Mclaren.
Amendment.
Councillor McEwen.
Motion.
And Councillor Milet.
Hi, Robert, I'm here. Motion, Stephen, thanks.
Councillor Milet. I'm just checking whether he's still with us. Hold on. He seems to have left. So at the moment we have 6 for the motion and 7 for the amendment. The amendment is accordingly declared carried. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can we now go on to item 5, Common Good Register? Can we agree that?
So, sorry, could I come in, convener? Sorry.
Yes. Yes.
Because of Councillor Burns coming in with his vote, that last vote should actually be 7 all. It should be 7 for the motion and 7 for the amendment. I apologise for that. It's just I had recorded it. So if you wish, I'll just go through it. I've got Councillor Adam McGregor for the motion, Councillor Burns for the motion, Councillor Cameron for the motion, Councillor Campbell for the motion, Councillor Davidson for the amendment, Councillor Devine for the amendment, Councillor Audrey Doig for the motion, Councillor Dawn for the motion, Councillor Graham for the amendment, Councillor Hood for the amendment, Councillor Kennedy for the amendment, Councillor Kerr for the amendment, Councillor James McCann for the amendment, and Councillor McEwen for the motion. And consequently, that makes it 7 for the motion and 7 for the amendment. The convener has a casting vote. Convener, if you'd like to indicate which way you would like to vote.
Yes.
The motion or the amendment.
Motion.
So that would make the vote 8 for the motion, 7 for the amendment, and the motion would be declared carried. And I apologise again for that.
That's
Can we have a recount?
Thank you. Thank you. Can we now go on to item 5, the Common Good Register? Can we agree this report? I don't hear anybody not agreeing. Can we agree the report?
Convener? Convener?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Mclaren, in you come.
Oh, thank you. Glad I got there. Yeah, on the last page of the report, it talks about it's the assets under investigation following representation. And it says decision expected by the 1st of April. So I just wondered if we had an update to this report.
Okay, Gordon, do you want to come in with that?
Hi, can I ask Joe Lynch to
Joe, yeah, okay, Joe.
Thanks, Convener. There's no update to the report as such, but I would advise that in terms of 2.2 in the recommendations, it will be a live register and may change as any further representations from interested parties have received on an ongoing basis.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Okay, Councillor Mclaren.
Right, thank you.
Right, there doesn't seem to be any more questions. Can we agree the report? The report's agreed. Can we go on to item 6, which is the proposed Renfrewshire allotment site regulations in terms of the Community Empowerment Scotland Act? Can we agree the report? Okay. Report is agreed. Item 7, Community Asset Transfer Return. Can we agree this report?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Item 8, which is Clyde Muirshiel Park. Proposal to dissolve Clyde Muirshiel Regional Park Authority Joint Committee. Can we agree this report?
Convener, I have a question.
Okay, Councillor Mclaren.
So my question is to do with Duke of Edinburgh awards. Schools are and parents are concerned that the Duke of Edinburgh awards are getting left behind, and I know that the park has played a big part in that in the past. Will there be an interruption in organising Duke of Edinburgh awards? No, is it okay, Audrey? I see you're shaking your head. Okay, I'm happy with that then. Thank you.
Okay then? That all right, James? Okay. Can we agree the report? Agreed. Okay. Can we now go on to item 9? Now this is an exempt item, which will be excluded from the press and the public. That is the proposed sale of Curzon School, Paisley. Can we agree this?
Kathy, you might want to tell me to stop recording.
Yes.